At the time I make this video, it's 2022 and we're in the third year of the worst worldwide pandemic since the Spanish flu of 1918. The discussion today is, what do comics have to say about pandemics and how have they handled this subject? Today we're going to take a look at one of them called Surgeon X from Image Comics from 2016.
Welcome back to Comic Power. I'm your host, Comic Killer 72. Welcome to another episode of The Quick Flip. This is the program where I go over comic book industry news in a short period of time. Please subscribe to this channel and click on the notification button as well. It will remind you when new videos drop. Alright, let's get right into it. By the way, March is Women's History Month, so I'm putting emphasis on female superheroes and the stories in comics involving women as lead characters. In today's subject, the lead character is a female named Rosa Scott, aka Surgeon X. And first of all, Surgeon X has nothing to do with the X-Men. You can't copyright a letter of the alphabet, even though Marvel thinks that you can. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. In 2016, Image Comics released Surgeon X. It's a near-future political dystopian tragedy. It's taking place in the United Kingdom in the year 2036, which is going through a massive pandemic related to antibiotics and the fact that they're ineffective due to overprescribing. If you think about how they've been used over the last 100 years, antibiotics have been very good at fighting bacterial infections, but are completely useless against viruses. That's why antibiotics are not going to help you with COVID-19. So the future that Surgeon X has given us is the bacteria have become immune to the antibiotics. These little creatures have mutated, which is plausible. So antibiotics are not working anymore. So people are starting to die by the hundreds of thousands from simple bacterial infections. This disaster leads to the rise of a far-right authoritarian government. It changes fashion as well. There's a new type of trend called health goth, where people are wearing designer scarves, coats, and sweaters and face masks with medical monitors built in. Another thing that's invented is school children can wear clothing that's made out of smart materials for playing sports, which helps prevent cuts and injuries, but only the rich kids have. As you might imagine, the gap between rich and poor is massive in this health situation. As I stated before, the hero in the story is a woman named Rosa Scott, who is a physician. She's backed by her sister Martha, who's a microbiologist who's searching for new antibiotics, and her brother Lewis, who's a tech wizard. There are experimental medicines that could help mankind, but they have been banned by the far-right government. So Surgeon X and her team decides to go underground to do some of these experiments. The authorities are aware of what she's doing, but they don't know who she is, and they label her an enemy of the state. In terms of theme, this story may have similarities with V for Vendetta, about a person that's going against the wishes of a far-right authoritarian regime. They both take place in the United Kingdom in the near future. V is considered a hero to the everyday person, but a terrorist to the government. Surgeon X is considered a hero to the people, but committing medical malpractice according to the government. V wears this type of mask, and Surgeon X wears this type of mask. Surgeon X was written and created by Sarah Kinney, who is a documentary filmmaker. The artist on this is John WATKISS, who's most famous for being the designer of the animated version of Tarzan. John was an incredible artist in all types of mediums, especially paintings. I did a spotlight video about him and his incredible work. Link in the description. Unfortunately, John passed away from cancer, dying in 2017, and he was working on this project knowing that he was terminal. So there you have it, Surgeon X. It's a V for Vendetta inspired type of story taking place in the near future in the United Kingdom, where antibiotics are not working anymore and simple things like an ear infection in your child could kill them. The panic in society leads to the rise of an authoritarian far-right government. Of course, they make things worse for society by repressing it. And our hero is Surgeon X, who's considered a criminal by the authorities. Remember, this comic book miniseries came out in 2016, so it's a whole 3 years before COVID first broke out in Wuhan, China, and then the rest of the world in the year 2020. COVID didn't spark the rise of a far-right government in America because we already had one, and its leader, who was mocking it and downplaying it, wound up actually catching the disease. A left-of-center president was hired in Joe Biden, and ironically was accused by the far-right of being some type of tyrant for implementing executive orders that were in the best interest of the health of his country. And the former far-right president actually went on the record of encouraging people to get vaccinated and boosted. So our current reality is not the Surgeon X reality, politically speaking, but the Surgeon X story of how it changed fashion. That part did come true. Well, kind of. You can get a mask that can make any type of statement you want using it as a billboard. So what do comics have to say about pandemics? In the case of Surgeon X, people will panic. They will put people in charge that promise to protect them, but actually wind up repressing them. And a hero that will come out of the woodwork amongst the people that will actually help the people better than the government will, and will be labeled a criminal. I definitely would urge you to go back and pick up Surgeon X and get the trade paperback so you can catch the whole story. Any subject you can think of, there's a comic out there that handles the material very well in terms of that subject. And in the subject of pandemics, I'll give Surgeon X 4 out of 5 stars. Next up is Wicked Wednesday, the new comic book pick of the week. For March 9th, 2022, the pick of the week is going to be Little Monsters #1 from Image Comics. This reunites writer Jeff Lemire and artist Dustin Nguyen after they closed the book on their Eisner Award-winning sci-fi drama, The Cinder. Jeff Lemire made my list of one of the top 5 writers in comics right now. He crushed it with Bloodshot Reborn and of course Black Hammer. And his story Sweet Tooth made it into live action, by the way, if you haven't seen it. It's a fantasy drama available on Netflix. Go binge it. And Little Monsters, the story revolves around the last children on Earth, and they're also vampires. They live among the ruins of humanity, but some type of event is going to happen that's going to change their world. You get more of Jeff Lemire's incredible storytelling and the watercolor stylings of Dustin Nguyen's art. This is a can't miss. As for the runner-up, this is a stacked week, so there's a lot of them, so hold on to your butts. Including the Sumerian Hour of the Dragon #1 from Blaze Comics is promising an uncensored, ultra-raw NC-17 level of Conan. Also see Han Solo and Chewbacca #1 from Marvel Comics. And why? Because Han Solo is awesome. Also check out Women of Marvel from Marvel Comics. It's an anthology comic with all types of short stories about female superheroes. And then there's the Gwenverse #1, also from Marvel Comics. This may be jumping the shark from doing too much Gwen Stacy stuff, with a variant version of Gwen with the Hammer of Thor, a variant version that's got the Captain America shield. It may just be too much with the variant thing going on. It may collapse under its own weight, but at least the cover is cool. And Marvel will have more toys to sell. And then there's Radiant Red #1 from Image Comics. This is superhero sci-fi action. It's a spin-off of the comic franchise Radiant Black, which was a minor hit for Image in 2021. This is one of those times where even if you don't know anything about the Radiant Black universe, the cover is so cool that you want to pick this up. As I mentioned before, March is Women's History Month, so I'm going to put a big emphasis on female superheroes. And one of the ways I did that was creating a playlist about my female superhero videos in my archives. I put a link in the description, but I'll do a breakdown on a few of them, such as Power Girl, the best female superhero ever. Yes, I did mean to say that. It wasn't a Freudian slip. Another good one is about Monica Rambeau, the character that was first introduced in WandaVision. This explains her background in the comics, as she was known as Captain Marvel, Photon, Pulsar, and now Spectrum. This video I did gives a whole background and history of the young Avengers, including Kate Bishop, who made her live action debut in the Hawkeye web series. And my most watched video ever is the top 10 actresses I think should be considered to play Storm when they reboot this character for the MCU. I also did the same thing for Rogue. There'll be more fan castings in the future, but I wanted to do Storm and Rogue first because these are the characters I think they messed up the most in live action. As I stated, this is a new playlist about female superheroes, so see it in the description. You know the drill. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, give it a thumbs up, and share these videos on social media so others learn about the Comic Power channel. And once again, thank you to my subscribers and my viewers who support Comic Power. I also want to say no to the war, and I support the people of Ukraine. Until next time, this is Comic Killer 72 for Comic Power, and I'm going to leave you with a video from the Surgeon X universe, which depicts a public service message in its fictional universe about the antibiotic pandemic.
A year ago, you made history. You voted in a new party, the Lionheart Party. You demanded strong leadership during this terrible antibiotic crisis. We know that many bacterial diseases are now completely resistant to antibiotics. In order to protect British families, now and in the future, we have successfully written into law the Antibiotic Preservation Act. Previous governments have tried to limit the prescribing of antibiotics. They failed. Previous governments have tried to facilitate the development of new antibiotics. They failed. Overuse of antibiotics has led to this resistance, so we have no choice. Rationing is rational.